Reading with Joan.
Hi. Hi, kids. It says, it's Reading with Joan StoryTime. Hello? Okay. Okay? Did you hear? Oh, the bird says it's time for us to enjoy a fun time of sharing our stories. Welcome. I'm Joan, your host for today. We have a special story for you.
Reading with Joan, the place for all the fun.
Hey everyone, it's Big J here. Today, I'm going to be reading Black and British from where Little J stopped last week. Today, we will be learning about the Romans, who lived from 27 BC, before Christ, to 476 AD and Dynamite. Africans first came to Britain with the Roman Empire. Long before Britain began to build its own empire, it was invaded and conquered by the Romans in the year 43 AD. Britain became a region on the end of the mighty Empire of Rome, which stretched across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. That's huge! When we talk about Romans, we don't just mean people from Rome or Italy. For example, I live in Britain, but I am not British from my roots. I'm Nigerian from my roots. When we talk about Romans, we don't just mean people from Rome or Italy. For example, I'm from Britain, but I wasn't born in Britain from my very roots. I'm Nigerian. Roman citizens could come from anywhere in the empire. People from all over the empire, and even beyond, traveled huge distances to trade, work, and fight in the Roman army. We know that Africans lived and settled in Roman Britain. By the time the Romans had been here for 200 years, some places in Britain may even have had a more diverse population than they do today. And now that we think about places like Scotland, where I live, very diverse, let's answer the question. Who are the Aurelian Moors? The first recorded group of Africans living in Britain were soldiers in the Roman army. They came to defend the edge of the empire at Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian's Wall is a very famous wall that almost separates the border between England and Scotland, but it's not exact. The wall stretched for more than 70 miles right across what is now northern England. It was built in the years after 120 AD by the order of the Emperor Hadrian. He wanted a border for the empire in Britain to control who could come in from the north and to defend against tribes who might attack. And nobody wants people attacking. Soldiers were stationed in forts and watchtowers all along the wall. Those soldiers came from all over the empire, and so did their families, their commanders, and traders who sold them whatever they needed, because you wouldn't be able to harvest on a wall. That would be a bit weird. You wouldn't be able to breed livestock on a wall. You needed other people to do it for you because it's quite hard. In 1934, not that long ago, Latin words were found carved into a stone in a village in Cumbria, northwest England. They said that a group of soldiers called the Aurelian Moors had been stationed at the nearby fortress of Abalava between the years 253 and 258 AD. 5 years. The word Moors means people. Oh, here's a map of the whole Roman Empire. The Roman Empire is the shaded parts that you can see. Okay, let's start from where I am. The word Moors means people from North Africa, the part of the empire where the soldiers came. They were named Aurelian after the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. There is another mention of the Aurelian Moors in Alabama in a list of Roman officials' travels, which confirms that they were there. Wow, Abalava wasn't just a fort, it was a whole community. As well as soldiers and officers, other people from across the empire would have lived in Abalava, including the soldiers' families. That's cool. How do historians know what Romans looked like? That's a good question. Now, it's time to find out. Romans didn't think and write about race and skin color in the same way we do today, because they didn't have the same ideas as some people do now. But historians and archaeologists can piece together clues to show the Romans in Britain were black and brown as well as white. We can read what Romans wrote about, where people came in, from histories, records of the army, and carvings on tombs. We can also study the skeletons they left behind. Wow, you can find out a lot from a person's body. Archaeologists today can use forensic science to find new clues in skeletons, some of which we dug up more than 100 years ago. Wow, because usually forensic science is used to find out how crimes happen and who is the criminal. So now they're using it to find out something that isn't a crime. Isotope analysis means studying the chemicals left in bones and teeth by what a person ate and drank as a child. By matching levels of these chemicals in different places, archaeologists can find clues to where the person grew up, because when you're a child is where you're growing up then. So that's how they found out. Chronometrics means measuring bones and skulls to find patterns which can be matched with skeletons from different parts of the world. Wow, so some parts of the world have different skeletons from another part of the world. Wow. It can help to work out if someone is probably from a European, African, or a mixed race family. That's interesting. Using chemical analysis and bone measurements, archaeologists are learning that Roman Britain was much more diverse than we used to think. We can't know exactly how many people, dark or light-skinned, lived in Roman Britain, but we can be certain that people from Africa lived here for more than 1,700 years ago. Whoa, that's a long time. Archaeologists studying skeletons from Roman Britain have found many which appear to be African. The length of some Roman skeleton limb bones gave 20th century archaeologists a clue that they may have been black Africans. An archaeologist in the 21st century studied over 200 Roman skulls found in Europe. They found that their hunch is right. In fact, more than 1 in 10 had features similar to people with African ancestors. That's a lot of people. Ivory Bangle Lady. Who is that? Let's find out. Ivory Bangle Lady is the name historians gave to one Roman African whose skeleton was found in Europe. She was a young woman who died in the 3rd century. Ivory Bangle Lady was discovered buried in a stone coffin called a sarcophagus. If you learned about ancient Egypt in school, you might know what a sarcophagus is. She had expensive luxuries buried with her. Jewelry made from silver, bronze, bone, and colored glass, a mirror, and a perfume bottle. She also had black and white bracelets. Look, here they are. The black bangles were made of jet, which probably came from northeast England, and the white bangles were made of ivory, probably from Africa. Perhaps the ivory was a reminder of home. That's an example of like jet black, one of the bangles, and the other black bangle is ivory white. When archaeologists measured Ivory Bangle Lady's skull, they found it was similar to people with black and white ancestors. That's mixed race. And when they studied the chemical isotopes in her bones, they found she hadn't grown up in Europe. Instead, she could have spent her childhood somewhere in North Africa. Wow. Putting all the clues together, Ivory Bangle Lady was most likely a mixed race woman with a North African background. She's also from a high social class. It wouldn't have seemed odd to learn that Ivory Bangle Lady was both African and rich. The skeletons of black Romans have been found in places where both rich and poor people were buried. For Romans, skin color didn't determine your place in society. Some people now think that people who are black or another ethnicity to them are not as good as they. The Roman Empire in Western Europe crumbled in the 5th century. When the Romans left Britain, the paths between Britain and Africa were wiped away. In the next 1,000 years, only tiny numbers of Africans came to Britain. For most British people, Africa lived on in stories from the Bible and from Greek and Roman writers, with myths mixed in with truth. When the Greeks and Romans who had traveled to Africa, medieval Europeans knew that people from Africa had dark skin. They knew the rough shape of the continent, but they could also read the fantastic stories about places in Africa where there were diamonds lying on the ground for anyone to pick up, fountain of water that kept people young forever, and strange people who had the heads of dogs or had just one eye in the middle of their foreheads. This picture here of a headless man called Blemmy is shown in Africa on the famous medieval map of the world, Mappa Mundi, until new sea routes started to give Europeans a way to get to Africa directly. Most of the continent would stay a mystery to them. So look, here's a full picture of the Mappa Mundi. I'm not sure that's accurate. The location of Blemmy on the Mappa Mundi is circled here. Do you see it? Okay, the map shows the world as it was understood in 1300. Jerusalem at the center and Africa at the back. Now we know that there isn't really a central city or country in the center of the world, but you can say anywhere is center. So that's all for today, guys. Remember to like, to comment, and subscribe. And we hope you enjoyed it. Bye!
has come. Read and write.
Okay. Oh, this bird. He wants to hear the story, kids. Yes, he said he listened to the last one and he really enjoyed it. Kids, are you ready to listen to the story with my little birdie? Yes, okay, come on, let's go. Today's story is fantastic. Like all the other stories we've been reading about Ananse. Who have enjoyed our stories about Ananse? Remember, we are reading this storybook written by Adwoa and Baba, the pot of wisdom, Ananse story. The pot of wisdom, Ananse story. So come along and let's read today's story. The title of today's story is Let the Drum Roll. Ananse becomes the owner of stories. Can you see the picture of Ananse? Look at him. Can you see the sunshine? That beautiful yellow sunshine? Ananse is carrying something. And can you see the bananas? Wow. And can you see the bees? Wow, something is on the stick. Guys, what is that? Let's find out from the story. Shall we? Let's go on. Only one thing concerned Ananse, how he would be remembered when he died. Kids, have you thought about that? How you will be remembered when you died? It was good for one to leave behind a monument. It was good to be remembered among the greats and to be sung as one of the heroes. But Ananse had no military poisoness, no awesome strength, no wise proverb, only his wittiness. He lived by his wittiness. He lived by his wits. It would be nice, he thought, if all the stories belonged to me. Ananse's story, he said aloud. He thought it sounded good. Then everyone would remember him when they passed the evening telling stories. He lost no time passing the title around. But when the king of a forest heard of it, he said to Ananse, "Great names are given to those that do great things. What have you done to deserve such honor? Try me, great king, and you will find I deserve no less," replied Ananse, undaunted. As yet, no one has captured these three. Wuwa, the entire household of honeybees, Abatie, the forest of Bois, and Akan, the python. Kids, get what? The king asked him to capture three things. Can you tell me? The honeybees, the python, and the forest dwarf. Nobody has captured them before. Let's go on a short break and see if Ananse do that and he becomes the ownership of stories. Okay, we are back. What did Ananse do? Was he able to capture them? "I am at your service, great one," Ananse replied. "For although I am strong, I have learned the weakness of the great. In 3 days, you shall have proof of my greatness." Ananse spent the night planning his conquest, and early the next morning, he was on his way. Everyone knew how busy honeybees are, and how ill-tempered they become when they are disturbed, and how they sting when you make them mad. Ananse bore this in mind when he ventured into their hives. "What a great number of you must live in here," he said by way of greeting. 300 of us," replied the great worker. "What?" shouted Ananse. "Did you say 200? 300! The great head worker again. "Oh, someone else said 200 last week," said Ananse. "There must be 200 of you." 300! Burst the irritated head worker. 200! said Ananse defiantly. Before long, many bees joined in the argument, and everyone was calling out the numbers they had counted. Okay, shouted Ananse over the bosses. "To settle this, and for once for all, why don't I count you?" The suggestions seemed fair to all concerned. Ananse produced the bottle and said, "You simply have to fly one at a time into the bottle, and I shall count you as you go in." First in was the head worker, and one by one, They went in, even the queen bee. And how many are we? Asked the bee. 300, said Ananse, sealing the bottle. I told you, said the head worker. Yes, but I have you all now, said Ananse. And although they burst with all their might, Ananse carried them off to his house. The next day, Ananse caught a huge hand of golden ripe bananas from his farm and chucked it to part of a forest where the dwarf people lived. Now, the dwarf people were very smart. They could run swiftly and silently through the forest at such speed that a man's eye could not see them. It's like a speed of light. One could only feel the wind. They could also stand so still that people passed them off as old tree stump. Indeed, only a few people could actually see a forest dwarf, and most people believe they do not exist. Passing in the deep forest, Ananse announced as though he was speaking to himself. I am so exhausted. I am simply going to leave my banana here and return them tomorrow. He then pretended to leave, but instead hid a banana tree and covered himself with a broad leaf. It wasn't long before a forest dwarf crawled out of his hiding place. Oh, ripe golden bananas I love best. I had better eat my fill before he returns. The dwarf ate until he could hardly stand. Then he ate until he could hardly sit. And then he ate until he laid his back and rolled off with his belly ache. Out came Ananse. The dwarf tried to run away, but he slipped into the banana skin and fell flat on his stomach. Ananse caught him by the scruffles of his neck and dropped him into his sack and carried him away to his house. The next day, Ananse was walking by the river where Anika the python bathed. Oh, Anika! Everyone tells about your magnificent skin and your majestic legs. Oh, yes, Anika agreed. This is none as magnificent. There is none as magnificent as I. I wonder myself exactly how tall you are, because I can cut these bamboo branches on my farm. It seems to me it is longer than you. Witty Ananse. Nonsense, is the python. Well, if you don't mind, could you lie down beside it for a minute just to prove me wrong? All right, said the python. But be quick. After a minute, the python asked, so, what do you think, Ananse? Which of us is longer? Ananse pondered aloud. It's hard to say because your neck and tail keeps moving. Hang on, I will tie the bamboo to you for only a second, just to keep you still. Ananse quickly tied the python's neck and the tail securely on the bamboo branch. There we are, he said. I've got you, sir. And with that, he carried the python, the honeybee, and the forest dwarf to the king of the forest land. The king was impressed. I am impressed. The king was impressed. He acknowledged Ananse's greatness and made him the owner of stories. Even today, everywhere stories are told, the name of Ananse is mentioned as the owner of the best stories. Kids, didn't you just enjoy that story today? I did. Can you tell me one thing you learned from it? We'll come back after this short break.
Have a great time. Come join us.
Okay. So, kids, what did you learn? The birdie is telling us something. Birdie said he learned that Ananse's wittiness is very great and very good. Ananse shows that he could plan meticulously to get the smartest, the bravest, the busiest, the most annoying element on earth. Kids, do you plan before you do anything? Do you process what you want to do? Do you say, I will do A before B, before C? Do you plan anything you do? Do you remember that Ananse did not just wake up and go into the beehive? He planned how he was going to capture them. He planned how he was going to capture the dwarf, and he planned how he was going to capture the python. So the lesson we learned today is plan before you take any action. And meanwhile, when you do that, you can produce the best of all stories. And I hope you're going away because lessons learned are lessons to be acted upon. And so I'll see you next time again on Reading with Joan Storytime. Bye.